Hello, this is my talk, Harnessing AI for Bat Videography Research and Conservation, initially presented at the 2025 North American Symposium for Bat Research in Edmonton, Canada. So anybody who has studied bats knows that it is quite difficult to study these animals. These are animals that fly up in the air, where we can't go, at night, where we can't see, making sounds that we can't hear. So people have used a variety of technologies to study bats over the years, including thermal videography, of course, acoustics, and other techniques, both for understanding their basic biology, as well as for monitoring populations and for conservation. So in this talk today, I'm going to talk about the current video software that is available for videography of bats, publicly available. I'm going to talk about the next generation of video for bats, how it works, why we want to use AI, and I'm going to go through three different test cases that we've been using in my lab for this kind of work and with collaborators, and my vision for the future. So there are currently some software programs that are available for analyzing video of bats, including my own software, ThruTracker, and Laura Klepper's Bat Count. And I would argue that this does represent a pretty substantial step forward over even just a few years ago when nothing, as far as I know, was really dedicated and publicly available for this kind of work, allowing scientists and conservationists to process more data, have more repeatable results, and when you have the right kind of videos and apply the right settings to them, you can get quite good accuracy. So Lauren Ammerman just this year published a paper in the Journal of North American Bat Research showing that she was able to get 91% correspondence between the counts generated with ThruTracker and her own counts manually going through this. And this was done with over 15 years of video on Leptonectarus. And the benefit, of course, was that the computer was able to go through everything in about 1/100th of the amount of time as the manual review of the videos. But this is certainly not a panacea at this point. So a paper was recently published in the Journal of North American Bat Research, a special issue that I edited, in the special issue about survey methods for monitoring bat populations. And in this kind of perspective piece, Laura Klepper and colleagues interviewed people who were currently using this kind of software, and they highlighted a number of limitations, including that there was still a relatively high learning curve with getting the software to work correctly, that there were too many parameters to tune, the complexity of using the software was a little too high, that it can be difficult to correctly filter noise from the videos, and the current video doesn't really deal with things like moving backgrounds. So just for example, this is a screenshot of the settings for processing my own software in ThruTracker. And we try to do our best to provide tutorials for people to use this, and I still think it's a very useful tool. But you can see that with this number of settings, if you're just new to this and you don't have proper training, or there is a bit of a learning curve to get this to work properly on your particular videos. So the question is, can we use AI to help with this, to get better results and to make that reduce that learning curve? So AI for video processing is generally very good at dealing with complex scenes, moving backgrounds, which the other iterations can't deal with. And once you get the AI tuned to the videos that they're working with, there's little to no input or expertise required to get that to work. However, there is a limitation that the AI network is only going to work as well as the training videos and data that are used to train it. And if it doesn't work in that particular case, your only recourse is to train a new AI model. So that kind of is a limitation there. So how does this work? Well, the first step in generating an AI model, and this really only has to be done once per particular project at least, or per update of the network, is what we call labeling. So you have a set of videos that are used for training the network, and Basically what we do is we go through those videos. You don't do every frame. You might pull maybe 10 frames per video for a variety of different videos. You try to get somewhere around anywhere from 300 to 500 images, kind of a good starting point. You want to get images that are representative of animals looking different ways. So you want to have some that are maybe closer to the camera, further away, flying at different orientations, etc. You also want those videos to represent a variety of backgrounds. So if there's clouds in the images, if you're recording with a sky backdrop, you want to make sure you have different kinds of backgrounds that could be there in the other videos you're going to use it for. Any kind of different filming conditions or lighting conditions, you want to represent as big of a diversity in that training data set as possible, as well as getting other things in there that might show up in the other videos, like people or wind turbines. If you're studying wind turbines, I think you get the idea. Once you have those labeled images, you point them and to the neural network training module. So for this, I'm using Ultralytics You Only Look Once, version 11. And if you're interested in developing your own, I'm happy to help provide code for you to do that. And basically, this provides that neural network that's going to then be able to take the images and produce the bounding boxes around objects of interest. At that point, you want to basically test how well did it work. So validation and potentially the next step of retraining. So you get metrics like this graph here are showing recall and precision. I'm not going to go through all of what that all means, but basically after you train the network, it gives you a variety of different metrics to tell you how good it did. Based on that, you may need to add more data. You may look at certain ways that the model wasn't working correctly and modify how you're labeling data and what else you need to put into it. At that point, hopefully you are ready for deployment, and you can then run that neural network over whatever videos you're interested in, distribute it to other people, have them test it, and basically if you want to check and then have a QA/QC procedure to test how well that's working, and at some point you may need to iterate on that and basically add more training or try some different approaches. So that's kind of the basic idea. Now I'm going to talk about 3 different projects, briefly going over them to kind of illustrate where I see this being most useful for bat research and conservation. So the first is in counting bat emergences. So for this project, so far, we've run this over 20 different videos, and we have thermal imaging for the most part inside of caves, also at bat boxes, and looking at columns of bats after they're emerging outside of a cave or another large roost. And for this, I was testing 2 different options. One is applying the AI directly to the images of the videos themselves, and the other option was applying a background subtraction filter to the videos before doing the processing. And the reason for that is that the AI is only looking at one image at a time. So by doing a background subtraction, that can help highlight things that are moving in the images. So I thought that might be useful. So jumping right to the results of this, on the original images, we were getting about 78% accuracy, and that bumped all the way up to 92% accuracy once we did the background subtraction. So it looks like that background subtraction really helps in some cases. And I will say that this was on the number of boxes, basically images, individual frames. Ultimately, we're more interested probably in this particular application, especially in the counts that it's generating. So it's quite possible that the counts might even be more accurate, because it's okay if you lose a few tracks, but we're still in the process of generating those counts to validate this. So overall, it worked quite well. There were a couple of videos where it did not work. The accuracy was only around 42%, and those were videos that were very difficult. The bats were just barely visible in the images, and we kind of wanted to see the threshold where the model wouldn't work. So we deliberately threw some really hard ones in there, and understandably, the model did struggle in that particular case. So this can also be used to help understand where that limit is as far as video quality and use that to help inform data collection down the line. So the second application was a collaboration between myself and Jesse Barber at Boise State University. And in this particular project, Jesse has a large indoor flight arena, and he was flying bats of 3 different species in there with a partition down the middle to test different kinds of acoustic deterrents. An acoustic deterrent was randomly played on one or the other side, and then we were measuring how much time the bat was spending on each side of the enclosure. So this was quite a large project. There was 5,000 trials with 4 cameras, so we had 20,000 videos. This is just one of those trials here, and you can see how much data that we were getting. There was an issue in this particular project that people were walking in to the field of view, and initially the model was getting tripped up with thinking that somebody's elbow or something was a bat. So we had a secondary filter that we generated to help filter out those false detections to just basically classify bat versus not a bat. And that basically fixed the problem. At that point, as far as I can tell, it's basically working with virtually 100% accuracy. So it would be very difficult to get a non-AI program to be able to do that sort of functionality. Okay, the third project was a field study that's actually currently still going on in California, in collaboration with Jeff Clark, Laura Dempsey at NREL, as well as a number of other colleagues. And for this, we wanted to test the effects of red aviation lighting on the kinds of lights that are put on wind turbines at night to see if that is affecting bat behavior, maybe attracting or even repelling or just changing their behavior in any way. So we have a light that's in this field that's cycling on and off on a timer every 30 minutes. And then we have 2 axis cameras that are stationed here, and they are set up to record continuously all night, every night, for the entire period of the study, which is about a month. And so far, we have not had a single failure. So we have had people testing this, but really, you could potentially set this up. And we're even working on getting it to have like cellular notifications that you just have an update every day that it's working. And you could potentially have these deployed as long as you want. With the particular recorder we're using, it's not particularly expensive, that device. We could be recording up to 6 months without even checking it. We are also using 3D tracking with 2 cameras. We found a way to synchronize these particular cameras, which had been an issue up until just this year. And then we can use simultaneous acoustics and get things like the wing beat frequency from the videos to help with species identification and also look at more detailed behavior. So this is just a few clips from the field videos showing a few different bats at different times that are being tracked. This one, for example, I know is a silver-haired bat because I got to watch this with acoustics at the same time. And you can really see a lot of what's going on in these videos. Okay, so in summary, I see the main benefits of this kind of approach is that with the proper training and setting up these A models, you can train it to pretty much detect, I would say as a rule of thumb, anything that you can reliably see and is a reliable feature in the image, we can get the AI to detect. It's not magic. It's not going to be able to just look at a blur of bats and tell you how many bats are there. But if you can slow it down, no matter how long it would take you personally to just kind of go through frame by frame and see what's going on, we can probably get the AI to do it. And then it's going to obviously be way faster to process, especially for larger data sets. And the ultimate goal is to have these systems that are going to be available for people, to have minimal user input, and to have streamlined workflows so that we have as high accuracy as possible and as few false positives as possible. And we've been able to get this to work so far on individual projects, and I think the goal is to make this scale up so that it can be used as easily as possible for new people who are looking to adopt this kind of technology. So my vision for the future with all this is that I could see a place, not in the too distant future, where we have permanent continuous monitoring stations, where we have equipment that's out there, maybe it's solar powered, Ideally, we could have that either processing with edge computing in the field if we had enough power for that, or uploading data to the cloud. And we're basically getting continuous, almost real-time streams of data. So I think this is an exciting time where we can really start thinking bigger about what's possible for bat research and conservation. So I want to thank my numerous collaborators on these different projects, folks who have been contributing videos. If you're watching this and you have videos to contribute or would like to collaborate, please check out my website, throughtrackeranalytics.com. We're going to be releasing a new version of ThroughTracker in the future, and we also provide services or consulting if you're interested in collaborating or increasing, up leveling the projects that you're involved with. And I also have to thank my undergrads who helped with this. And yeah, if you're interested in this kind of work, please get in touch and check out my website. All right, thank you.